You know, they keep coming back.
Welcome to the Finance Committee for Monday, August 28th, 2023. We look like we have quorum. We have 13 appointed members to start this year. Scott has let me know that he is in Ireland, the poor guy, can't attend. And Jean had something come up, but we'll try to join on Zoom when and if possible. So, we're good. Call the meeting to order, and the first thing on the agenda is to come up with the chair, vice chair, and clerk for the upcoming year. So let's start with the chair.
I will nominate Dennis Crowley.
Second.
Okay,
We've got
all right.
nomination for me, a second from
And Mark.
Mark. Any other nominations? Seeing none?
Took my turn.
I will ask for a vote, and we'll go from there. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and I'll abstain.
10-01.
10-01, thank you. Now, next is open nominations for vice chair.
Doug, are you willing to run again? I'll nominate Doug for vice chair.
Second.
So,
We got you got it? You pick who you want, they said at the same time.
Susan's got it.
okay, Susan?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. And then nominations for clerk.
Josette? Yeah.
Second.
We got a second, so Mark seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
Yep, abstained, 10-01, good. Excellent.
That was easy.
One at second, then I'd like to welcome back Susan.
Thank you.
Good to have her back on the committee.
Happy to be back. I missed you guys.
So next, turn it over to Jim.
Sure. So what we have here is basically the draft warrant in the form of the memo dated August 24th. We're covering a lot of issues on this fall town meeting warrant, 20-plus articles, and mostly a lot of capital and you know, some few budget adjustments. So if you'd like me to kind of just get into the items that are on the agenda tonight, does that work for you? And I'll go through one at a time, and you can stop me.
Let's start there, and then if people have questions, we'll go from there.
So Article 2 is the in-year budget adjustment. We expected state aid to come in higher than we had budgeted, which it did, by about $1,497,000. Right here, you have a recommendation of $1,496,500, and the items being considered is $190,000 towards the reserve fund. Town clerk salary line $6,500. That's to there were some payouts and promotions there. A couple people left, and we've hired a new assistant town clerk. So just to cover her expense, legal $35,000. There's some confidential stuff that came up. I want to be safe on a couple of things, and so that's why I'm recommending $35,000 there. Walpole Public Schools $250,000. Norfolk Aggie, you might recall that their number came in just under $15,000 over what we actually budgeted, and we said, we're already into the budget, let's just make it up in the fall, and then $1 million in capital stabilization, and that will likely go towards the high school in about a year from now. So, does anyone have? And Jody just reminded me, there's a $10,000 request from the Board of Health Director. And I'll have to get you some more information on that one. She hasn't actually submitted it to me, but the opioid settlement, and it's a national settlement, we're part of it. So far, we've received $141,000.
It's 141 in FY '23 and 24,000 in FY '24.
Okay. And there's not really been any great guidance from the state as to how we can spend it. We had to close out to our free cash, but Jody and I agreed, let's just reserve the money until they come out and say, this is how you can spend it. So that's the only item not on there, but it would be funded probably through free cash, right? Because that money was closed out to free cash. What are you thinking?
Yeah. Oh, I thought when we first talked, it was gonna be through taxation, but.
So
free
more to
cash
come
is
on that
fine, too.
$10,000 item, but for the most part, the heavy stuff's right here in front of you. Any questions?
Josette?
The Board of Health, are those grants?
No, it's not a grant. It's part of a legal settlement.
Okay.
Mark?
Just curious, I know that when we put money aside for funds, OPEB is locked, you can't get it back. Are there any other funds, the capitalization funds or others, where if the town meeting approves to put the reserve into the funds, that if there was an emergency, you can't have a vote and pull the money back?
So it's a 2/3 vote to get the money out.
2/3 back, except for OPEB, that's gone.
OPEB, I think it can be used somehow for health insurance.
Medical insurance,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's the only use. yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Mark?
It's something I've been thinking about since last year, at possibly doing tax relief. Is there a mechanism by which instead of putting $1 million into capital stabilization, we can use that to offset the rate adjustment for this year?
I don't know. I'll have to
Good question.
I mean,
kind of put it in, like,
Yeah.
exactly what you're thinking of, Mark.
Well, I mean, we appropriated funding sources in the spring, and we said X is going to come from taxation. We now have a new revenue stream that's available to us now. Can we turn around and say, substitute $1 million from this revenue source and reduce the taxation appropriation?
I really have to research it, Mark. I know years ago, I think 2018, 17, when there was a push to take free cash, there was a way of doing it, and we had researched it, basically reduce the levy limit by
A dollar amount.
1% or something like that. But if you really want to pursue it, this is, bring it up to the whole committee type of
Okay.
thing.
All right. I'm not going to hold up the vote tonight.
Yeah, we can always redo it later. Sorry, Larry.
No, it's okay. The salary clerk, is that sick buyback or whatever?
No, it was mostly her payout. She had accrued, not sick time, it was vacation time. So we're a little short in the hole because she left this fiscal year to go to another town promotion, good for her. And she was owed, I think it was her accrued vacation time. And we're a little short in that account at this point.
And in the reserve fund, what's the current balance of that fund?
Current balance is $450,000.
And that's not enough to get us to June 30th, 2024?
I think it's good to tuck some money away there. We haven't spent it the last few years. Actually, the last two at least, right, Jody? I have the balances in here.
What do you usually keep? Is it a
We've
400,
been keeping
300?
460,000 since COVID, I think. So,
And what's on the capital stabilization, what's the current balance right now, approximately?
I have that in here.
2.9?
Yeah, it's on page 2.
Oh,
It's
all right.
2.904397.
And I guess you've heard me before, but why not put any of this into OPEB? I know you're putting some in already through this formula, but per this annual audited statements, we're about 100 million in the hole between pension and OPEB liabilities.
To be
Just a
quite
thought,
honest with you,
just
I think the
looking up.
money's better spent putting towards capital stabilization. We're going forward with the high school that's getting designed right now. We need that money to save the borrowing costs a year from now.
Oh, in lieu of borrowing.
We're gonna borrow, the projection is 25 million borrowing, and the remaining balance will come from capital stabilization and maybe some free cash next year.
How much do you, okay, 20, how much is the total, you guess? I know it's still probably early. On how much,
Total cost of the
yeah.
project. All in, the cost is about right now, about $34 million.
25 and 9 approximately. of
Yeah, we've
cash and-
committed other money, ARPA funds, but that's about about.
So 9 million, you've got a balance of, was it 2 something?
2.9.
2.9, so there's a gap of about 6. Help me, get me to 6.
So we have $2 million. Have you read
2.3 in
through
this-
this packet? I actually explained it in here.
Okay, all right, cool. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions on Article 2? We have a motion?
He wanted to hold off until September.
Yeah, we can hold off
That's right, sorry.
the vote before. And Article 3 is OPEB, free cash appropriation on that one. And recommendation is for kind of an odd number, 1,071,252. And how did I come up with that number? So last fall in November, I think it was, the boards got together, and I drafted an outline. It wasn't really voted on. It was greater than what we currently have in place as a policy, and that's in parentheses here. Commit to take 75,000 of the first 2 million of certified free cash each year, place it in OPEB, and further take 8.5% of the funds over 2 million and place it in there. So that's how I came up with that. It used to be the first 50,000 of first 2 million. It's greater basically, and I believe it was 7.5% before.
Any questions?
Are we bringing these up for the votes now too? Or is he just giving us an overview?
We do have, if you'd like to vote on it tonight, you can vote on it tonight. We have votes on the agenda.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
just take the vote if we can.
Oh, all right, so just on the OPEB, Mark and I were at the selectmen's meeting last week, and I asked the auditor, I mean, there was a big jump, $10 million due to accounting changes. And he confirmed that the accounting changes are more or less, as Jim describes in here, based on the discount rate, so it's a numbers type of so many people in, actuarial issues, and I was concerned that it was an accounting, like terms and conditions change at the FASB board. Because, all of a sudden, it's a 10 million jump. We keep telling people, okay, this is how much the OPEB is. Here's our delta. And it keeps increasing each year. So I think we approve this, but I just want to let you know that it's the discount rate. It's the numbers versus someone in FASB making an accounting change.
I watched you.
Well, I wanted them to know that FinCom was on the job, that
Yes, I saw both of you.
Yeah. The other thing I'm curious about is, when I was looking at the numbers of active employees to the retirees, I mean, it's almost a 50-50. Are we at that point yet?
Of retirees.
Just when you look at the number, you had it was like 2021, so many active town employees and so many retirees. And we still had more active than we had retirees, and was wondering now, are there more active employees that are in the pension, you're calculating for, or we have more retirees in OPEB and active?
I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, the OPEB is up to 65 and over, and I've made the push 2 times since taking over, and it went nowhere to change the health insurance cost for retirees under 65. And I can bring it up again. The message was received on my end, so I don't know the ratio of current employees to retirees. I can find that out for you.
Yeah, no, just curious.
Other questions on, yep.
Well, the discount rate, as you mentioned, is really the rate of return, and they're estimating the rate of return to be lower
Correct.
quite a bit. And on the pension one, they estimate that return at 7.75, and the OPEB folks are at 6.1 approximately. I think the pension's probably more like 6.12. But, so it's underestimating that liability, in my opinion. Just keeps going. I don't know if rates are gonna go where they're gonna go, but
Yeah. The other thing I noted was in the pension fund, it talked about that the North Fork County Trust, it was at like 79-point-something% funded. So are all the towns that are in that county, are we all at 79, or can some?
Lisa serves on the board, so you...
So the goal is, the pension is at 79%. So everybody has their fair share of the assessment. So depending on your assessment, but the goal is we will be fully funded in 4 years, 2029. So if we're funded, all the towns are funded. With, the next day, you're obviously not fully funded, because then you're just playing catch-up. But yes, everybody's gonna be fully, I don't wanna say that. The projections are, all the towns will be fully funded, because they all have their own assessments. So their assessments are based on their percentage of the system and the employees that they have.
Right, and so all the towns are required to fully fund the assessment?
Yeah, every town is
Yeah,
required.
I just want to make sure it wasn't like, Walpole, we're putting a lot more, and Medfield isn't.
No, we just get a bill
Yeah.
every,
Yeah.
it's due.
Based
beginning of
on your
July.
active employees and your retirees window.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
sorry.
that fully funded is based on the 7.75 return?
Right now, yes. That last actuarial study, that was the discount rate.
Okay, thanks.
When that is done, that means we should get no bill for it?
Well, I think you'll always get a bill, but it won't be like for 6 million, it'll be
Just-
much.
It'll be for that year's
Yeah, exactly.
payments in, yeah.
We talked about this 1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I used the round, I think it was like, it'll free up $4 to $5 million. Was a conservative number. What we figured is most of that money would go towards our OPEB liability. And as I think Chad said it during his
Yeah.
meeting with the board, that's what all the Norfolk County towns are planning on doing with it.
I remember that conversation from a few years ago, but just wanted to make sure that's, was correct. Getting older, so I'm trying, my memory. Excellent. Any other questions on Article 3? Do we have?
Move for favorable action on Article 3 in the amount of $1,071,252 from free cash.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Doug. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Excellent. Before we, it should be 11:00.
Yeah.
Thank you. Before we move on to Article 4, Doug had brought up the fact that the school committee's here, and we didn't ask any questions in Article 2 about the $250,000 that was in there. So, Doug, I'll turn it over to you.
Could you just explain the 250, please?
So the 250 was part of our original budget that we worked with Jim and the town with. So a shortfall in the original budget request obviously requires us to cut other things within our budget. Tonight, we'll be talking about Medicaid briefly and the transfer of those funds. You'll see that the Medicaid reimbursement dropped by $234,000. So I'm trying to associate what the 250 could be. It could be anything within the entire budget, but if you just simply look at Medicaid, that drop off of $234,000 in effect was covered by this $250,000 piece. So if you take that away, I have to go and find the funding for those individuals that are now moved back into the operating budget. That's a diluted, simplified version of, but it could be literally anything within our budget. But I thought that was appropriate since we're gonna talk about it later. I think special ed is a topic we've talked about last year, so just to highlight, we're facing some unique challenges this year with tuitions going exceedingly high. And that continues to roll in, and those projections evolve as the year is evolving. So I guess stay tuned on that. We're trying to manage that within our given budget, plus the circuit breaker set aside that we've been squirreling away money to offset something of this sort in the budget. And then the final piece I would mention is that, and Jim mentioned it, the state aid went up. Chapter 70 funding for education went up by approximately 1.2 million. And we felt like, the school committee felt like that was an opportunity to use those resources to help flatten our budget and fully fund it, where that was not there when we originally talked about that gap.
Any other questions? Yep, go ahead.
What do you mean flatten?
So if we have a deficit right now, I'm operating within a deficit. If we fund it, the additional 250 that Jim has recommended, the budget is flat. We'd be covered.
And we did have this conversation last spring when we were going
We
through.
did.
So the plan came together.
Fortunately,
Yeah.
Chapter 70 money came in, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Jim, Article 4, stabilization.
So, stabilization, recommending $1,300,000 here into the regular stabilization account, with the current balance being 10.4 million and change. I hope we go with this recommendation because it'll get us to something we've been striving for a long time here, which is about 10% of our operating budget placed away in stabilization. Now, every year, I always try to include where have we come with these different accounts. I just want to kind of point out to you, on page
20?
20. So, back with stabilization, back in FY10, we only had $1.3 million in there. So, in these years, we've built that up to become, if this recommendation goes through, 10% of the operating budget. So, I'm happy with that.
So you want to maintain it going forward.
That's the plan.
So
Maybe add a
next
little
year, hopefully, the number would be significantly smaller,
Yes.
correct? Because we would just have to carry over the difference in the growth of the operating budget.
Yeah, if you grow the budget by 2%, you're asking for 250,000.
Yeah.
Something along those lines,
Yeah.
yeah.
Question, yeah. Larry?
Where's the money coming from?
Free cash.
Mark?
And that is identified on page 17. Yeah.
So my question is the 10% ratio, does it trigger anything, like we get a better bond rating? Or is it just a nice to have versus if you hit this, here's the way the auditors or bond people look at it?
The bond people definitely look more favorably on it. Our goal for some time has been to be a AAA town. We're the next step below it, but we are below it. So I think this will certainly go towards helping us. We've been really proactive the last couple times we've gone out and borrowing to try to basically ask them for feedback after the fact. And every time we've gone out, we've done everything they've said, and they keep giving us that second tier. And we're working on it, but this will certainly help.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on Article 4?
Just a comment, I guess. If possible, with Articles 4 and 5, I'd like to wait to vote on these, just in case anything comes out of Articles 6 and 7 with the bonding, so that,
Fine with me.
sorry, with the other capital requests.
So we can come back to that at the end. So any other questions on 4, sorry? Then I'll open it, go into 5, and we can go from there.
So,
Excuse me, could I, Denny,
Yeah,
through you?
go ahead, please.
So what are you thinking might come up?
Well, one, the capital budget committee hasn't given us their recommendations, so I want to see what comes out of that. 2, I don't particularly like some of the items. The culture and recreation, for example, I disagree with the downtown recreation activities elements. We gave money last year, and that hasn't even come to fruition yet. So I would like to personally see the concrete elements that we bought last year put into play before we move
capital.
forward with the second
Okay,
rendition.
all right,
So that's one of the items that I'm specifically thinking of.
okay, thank you.
okay, so next item up is Article 5, capital stabilization. So if the Finance Committee acts favorably on Article 5 and Article 2, well, bring the balance up significantly from 2.9 million to, and it'll basically almost double it, though, which is good. And continue to work to get us towards funding this high school project. Here, questions?
Is the borrowings you're talking about, the 25 million, within the framework, or do you have to do an override?
Yes, so if you look at page 21 here, I kind of broke out where we were at with a lot of this, the funding and everything. So back in May, they finished a schematic design. School committee endorsed it in June, but in May, they estimated if we went one of two routes, design bid build to be about 25.7, and CM at risk, which is the type of building we're doing right now at the middle school, 27.6. So I know that's a big range, and that's something that probably the select board and the permanent building committee, as we get closer, move along with this project, they'll have to make the decision. Ultimately, I want the board to make the decision because I want the project manager to sit down in front of them and the school committee and say, here's the pros and cons of going this route. And, so that's the range we got right there. So,
Thanks.
Other questions?
Jim, if you go forward with the high school project as an article, where we would be using capital stabilization and borrowing, would it just be one vote because they both require 2/3?
We will likely, I'll probably dig up the police station vote from a few years ago. That had multiple, I think that had 6 funding sources maybe in it. And break it down A, B, C, just the same way. It'll be one vote, but like capital stabilization, it'll all be a 2/3 vote. It'll be, because even if we put some either free cash or closed-out capital projects towards that, it won't really matter. We'll need the 2/3 for the 2 big important pieces.
Okay.
Any other questions? So we're going to hold off on voting on 4 and 5. So the next up is Article 11.
Right, I'm sure the superintendent and business manager can address it, but this is our yearly transfer back over to the school fund. They take in the student parking money at about $30,600, and they do a great job pursuing the Medicaid reimbursements, currently at $431,541, for a total of $642,141.
And this we do every year, but are there questions from anyone here on this? We have a motion then on this?
Move approval of Article 11.
Do we need the amount?
Yeah.
62,141.
Right, I have it, but,
Yeah.
I think that's it.
but we're, so in the amount of
Yeah, 460,
62,141.
perfect.
Second.
Kathleen had a second. Did you have a question or were you
No,
seconding?
that was a second.
Perfect. I got you, Kathleen.
Thanks, Danny.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Excellent. So Susan, Kathleen, and 11-0-0. That brings up Article 12.
So we're looking to add to some of the revolving funds here, two specifically. The Council on Aging programs, increase that from 100,000 to 150, and recreation program, increase that from 700 to $1 million. Jody, do you want to run them through just a little bit?
For the Council on Aging, the programs have gone from 44,000 in FY '22 to 75,000 FY '23. So there's been just about a 50% increase. And in talking with Carrie, she, was concerned about the level, so we're recommending that. And for recreation, they were just over their $700,000 mark, so we definitely need to increase that as well.
Okay.
Through you, is there a formula by which a revolving account cannot exceed a percentage of that department's budget?
So I tried looking into that, because I think it was brought up once before.
It was.
And I couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
But I was supposed to have a meeting tomorrow with one of our DOR reps, and I was going to ask then, but they canceled, so.
Okay.
But I will
Okay.
find that out.
Thanks.
Any other, yeah.
Do you, Danny, just to reminding me the revolving funds, so I'm just thinking the town meeting approves the budget. Each of these departments, they get a budget. So what is the revolving fund?
So the revolving fund, the revenue that comes in is for fees, and then the expenses to fund that program come out of that same account. So there's no supplement from the general fund, it just all comes through as programs, or engineering fees or something like that.
Okay, so they're bringing in more revenues, so they're having more costs and,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
And this is a cap of what they can spend in any fiscal year, correct?
There is a cap on, I think it's the 53E&a-half accounts, and we haven't met it yet.
Okay.
Other questions? Doug?
Question about the Turner Pond Fund. I know in Article 6, we also have 15,000 for Turner's Pond. Could the revolving funds, if there's sufficient balance, be used instead of that?
They don't have enough, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I just want to say that,
That's the Ponds
I
Committee.
guess through you to Jim, that the Recreation Department is just unbelievable. And now I have experience with grandchildren in other towns, and you can't even believe the difference. So kudos to the Recreation Department.
Some really good work over there.
They do fabulous work, and the staff they're great, so. And I would say the same for the senior center. Unbelievable what goes on over there. It's
It is.
really, I think back to what we used to have, what we
Yeah,
have now.
you can't compare.
It just.
We're in what we used
In
to
this
have.
room, yeah, right.
This room.
Used to be it. Excellent. So, if there are no additional questions, do we have a motion?
So moved.
And
Second.
we got Doug and, or Josette. Doug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 11-0-0. So that moves us on to Article 16.
So 16, 17, and 18 were placed on the warrant at the request of our finance director and treasurer collector.
15, 16, and 17.
Sorry, 15, 16, 17. I missed it. Okay. So Jody and Lisa are going to touch upon those a little bit. You want to just go in order?
Sure. So we voted last spring town meeting for betterments for East, I think it was Eastland Circle, 186,000, something like that. In order for us to proceed with that, we need to set up a receipts reserved for appropriation. And those funds that we receive through the betterment payment will then be spent and pay for the debt. So for us to be able to do that, we have to accept this chapter. Also, each spring town meeting, I imagine, we will need to appropriate the amount of debt to be able to spend out of those funds. Any questions?
I'm just wondering procedurally, the Article 15 wasn't on the agenda for today, so can we do anything with that, or do we need?
Yeah, I was going to ask
Put it
the
off
same
for
question,
later.
so the agenda.
The reason this happened is we got rid of an article last week that we didn't need. Everything else on the agenda is fine, but you're right, the numbering, you can hold off on voting on it if you want.
I
But
just
I'd
didn't know
love
if it
for
was
Jody
allowed.
just to kind of keep going through it and explaining it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put it on for the next meeting to get the vote, just to make sure we don't create any issues.
Can I have a comment?
You're all set?
Is this exclusively just for this one situation, or will there be other situations being grandfathered into this in the future? Not that you have a magic ball, but does it open the potential of that happening, or is it a case by case?
No, once you accept the chapter, it's for any betterments that we decide to take on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
Just,
Yep, go ahead, Kevin.
have we never done a betterment before? I thought we did it one other time.
We did, it was several years ago, before I was here, and we looked to see if this was ever accepted, and it was not. I don't know if it was in effect back then either,
Okay.
but for now, we have to do it.
Sorry, just making notes.
So this is like an article numbering issue.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah, because the agenda said 16, 17, and 18, so we'll put on votes for 15, 16, and 17.
However
next
you want to
meeting.
do it. I mean, you do have 16.
Say, oh, you could do 16.
17 we can
So you
do.
could vote on 16 and 17 if you want, yeah.
Right.
But
Are there any questions on 16 and 17? It's pretty straightforward.
On 16 and 17?
She just did 15, so now we have to talk about 16 and 17.
She was, they're all tied together.
No, they're all just
No, they're separate.
placed on the warrant at the request of the finance.
Oh, I got you, sorry, I was thinking
Yeah,
that it was all on the procedural side, sorry, my bad.
16.
Okay, so I'll explain Article 16. That is to amend the general law of Chapter 40, Section 57, which allows the town to, when somebody applies for a license or permit right now, the collector tells each department if this person has outstanding taxes, fees or anything else that is owed to the town. The current bylaw states that they have to be over 12 months overdue. But municipal modernization now allows the town to basically make their own decision on a case-by-case basis. So it puts a little teeth into the chapter. A lot of times the building department will notify me, ask me, does this person requesting a permit owe anything? And I will say yes or no. So the first thing is, yes, they owe money. The second thing is, the person who applied for the permit or license I just reported, the department has the authority to have a hearing if it's requested, if we're gonna deny the license because they have outstanding taxes or whatever. But this now takes away that 12-month waiting period. We can decide, as long as they allow it, they want us to pursue it, it takes that away. So it's just kind of housekeeping, puts a little more teeth into that chapter and verse for the town, and the town has already accepted it in the original form.
I move for favorable action on Article 16.
Second.
Like it.
Can I ask a question?
Going to see if
before
we had more
vote?
discussion first. Going to open it up to more discussion.
So they have discussion.
Okay, is this basically the building inspector making this decision?
Nope, so it's any department that issues a permit or a license, okay? So the selectmen, when parking lots, they say, is this person current, up to date? I will say, they owe money. Right now, they have to be 12 months in arrearage. This change will allow us to say, they owe money, you gotta pay it in order. But they don't, part of the law also states they're entitled to a hearing by that department. So ultimately, they have due process, but now we don't have to wait 12 months.
Okay, so it's just a time factor. Thank you.
So
Go to
just
Mark
to-
and then Kathleen.
for understanding, basically, the due process remains the same. All we're doing is shortening the process. We don't have to wait the 12 months, they can start. Okay,
Yep.
great, thank
So,
you.
can I just clarify that? Because that doesn't, I've interpreted it differently. So you couldn't report it to them until it was 12
I can report
months?
it to them. I realistically, we always report it.
Yeah.
But they would have to be over 12 months overdue for the process to start, okay? For
Couldn't
them
deny
to be
a permit.
allowed.
Yeah.
To have a hearing.
Asking
Now-
board cannot deny it
Yeah.
if it's not
Yes.
at least 12 months. Now they can deny it immediately upon getting the information.
Hearing.
Yeah.
If it's past due, right,
Yeah.
it's gotta be past due.
Yeah. All right, Kathleen, and then go to Audrey.
So through you, Denny, to Lisa, I'm a little bit concerned when I hear wiggle room. So, and it may just have been a choice of words, would it be better served to say 2 months, 6 months, whatever it is, rather than, because who is the ultimate decider in terms of,
The department that's issuing the license or permit, I just report that there's a certain amount of money due. So let's say it's 500,000 and somebody wants to build, something, and they owe us 500,000. I say they owe us 500,000. It's a month overdue, okay? In the past, it would have to be 12 months overdue. So then through the law, the person that is overdue has a right to this due process, which requesting a hearing. They can sit down with the licensing authority and, work out a plan. I'm just reporting it, but it's just giving us, we don't have to wait that length of time anymore. They don't have to have it be outstanding over 12 months. If, and it's at the discretion of the department that's issuing the license or the permit to hold the hearing and allow the payment. I just report it and they decide,
so I understand a piece of it, so maybe I shouldn't direct my comments to you, but my concern is who ends up getting, if it's, overdue at any part, do we run the risk of two people saying, oh, you were overdue, and I was overdue, and our situations are the same, but for some reason I was discriminated against because they don't like me, or I'm not related to someone, or whatever it is that people like to say. Like, should we just shorten it to 2 months?
That doesn't,
that's not a decision.
I'm just making up any
I
number,
would
but
just say that I don't think that would resolve your
Right.
concern. Your concern is discretion, right? So when there is
hearing.
it's the same process. So let's say right now, you apply for a liquor license or building permit or something, and you owe the town $500,000, and you've owed it for a year. So now there's the process. It's exactly the same thing that happens now after 12 months would happen now,
Could just begin sooner.
right? In other words,
I see that.
why should we have to sit around and wait 12 months and you owe that money? If you owe money and you're asking for something from the town that we don't have to give, we should be able to act on that right now and come to some conclusion.
This was an issue with a bigger developer in town, and he knew the law.
Yeah.
12 months.
They do.
But,
Yeah, so they-
and he just waited and waited and waited, and so, we had to issue him a permit. So, and knowing he owed a fair amount of money.
They pay interest on that money.
Right, but
14.
we
They finally
want
pay
the
it.
project done sooner rather than later, we want to collect our money, we're not in the business of,
I get it.
Yeah, I guess, and it's past due, it's not,
right,
yeah.
Right, it's past due.
past it.
So,
Yeah, sorry, Mark, go ahead. I'm thinking, so.
so, right now, if I owe the $500,000 and there's the year waiting period, I can apply for the permit and the town can't act on it because the year isn't up. So basically, I get my permit and I still owe you money. What this basically says is, no, you're not getting a permit, or that they can have a hearing
Yep.
and they can say, no, we want to be paid before, okay. So I think it protects the town.
But the license or permit, does it have to have anything to do with the taxes or utilities owed, or it's just
all-
any
yeah,
license or
anything that's owed-
permit?
It's usually taxes and utilities is usually what's owed.
And so you could, something completely unrelated to taxes and utilities, you could withhold a permit for that?
If they had a major fee that they were supposed to pay the town and they didn't pay, and then they apply for a permit for something, that's also covered. It doesn't happen very often, but it's just, we've been given the opportunity through Municipal Modernization Act to change this, and so that's what we just want to do. That's, it's not a,
And that developer I'm talking about, department heads, we all sat in this room and said, well, they owe X, Y, and Z, but there's nothing we could do about it. They had to give the permit,
So, in that particular case, what happened? You gave him the permit. Did he
withhold
pay,
it.
did he ever pay the?
Is he paid up?
everybody, the thing is we still report it to the department, and hopefully they'll, we say they owe, it's not 12 months overdue, but we at least get it mentioned that
Yeah.
you're on the radar. But they eventually have to pay it, and they eventually will pay it when it comes down to the wire and they need that, permit or, whatever they need,
Yeah, because the final
yeah.
permit isn't issued
Right.
until it's paid.
Something.
Yeah.
I think, for me, I'd like to put this on hold to look at the purpose of the Municipal Modernization Act, because, it's in the one case of a big developer, that seems pretty egregious, but, you wouldn't want to make broad sweeping changes as a result of one bad case. So looking into someone who may apply for a license or permit in order to make money to pay off their town-owed debt. So I'd want to look into it a little bit more.
So I just want to say, it's just reporting, and then the department, everybody's entitled to due process through this. So it's not like you don't pay it, you don't get the license. They could come before whoever, and they'll, hey, if I do this, I'm going to be able to pay this, so it would be,
Oh, for sure. I'm always worried about adding extra steps to people who otherwise, unlike the larger developer, may not be as savvy with the law or know how to negotiate the system as much as a large developer, in the case mentioned, or someone to put extra hurdles in front of people.
So I did make a motion for favorable action, which was seconded, so I think we need to have a vote. But I would just say in response to your concern that most people know when they owe money, like taxes or fees. It's not like a mystery. And
For sure.
I think I'm saying is that I think if you don't pay your bills, you shouldn't be looking for permits, licenses, whatever. That's what we should all be doing, is paying our bills, what we owe the town. So I think we should vote.
So Larry, and then I'll come back down. We'll work our way.
Correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of towns borrowed money by various people, they often will work out a payment plan or something because if someone's in a situation where they're in a bind for whatever reason, the idea is to help them, not to punish them further, but the idea is, the concept here is to get them to the table to
Right.
get
Take
that,
action.
work out whatever it might be, started versus, if anything, it's accumulating and just digging a deeper hole possibly.
So Kathleen, then Lisa, then
So,
Mark.
if we are going to vote on it, my concern was the wiggle room. I feel like now, based on the explanation I've heard, the wiggle room is a separate thing. The wiggle room is the hearing or whatever, but it's not built into this amendment that we're talking about, or this bylaw that we're,
That's general.
I was wondering, is that built into the statute? The hearing process?
I don't know. I don't know. Did anyone hear? Audrey?
Sorry,
She was asking if the hearing process was built into what we're accepting here.
Well, we're just amending the chapter and verse that we've already approved of in 1985. The amendment is the 12-month period. That hearing is already part
Okay.
of.
Thank
The
you.
process just starts sooner,
Yeah.
so I would be an affirmative at this point, but.
Lisa?
So, I understand that, for some of us, this is a no-brainer. But when, a member of our committee, as has happened earlier in the meeting, has said, I would prefer to hold off on votes on these things because these are my issues, and that was respectfully, addressed for Articles 4 and 5. So although there is a motion on the table to vote yes, somebody has asked for a little more time to look into it, so I don't think it hurts to say, fine, let's take a little more time.
So procedurally, I think,
We have
because
to vote, but I'm just reminding us that there is precedent for allowing a committee member who asks for time
No
to have the
problem.
time.
I would have,
I was going to speak to that.
Okay.
So procedurally, the person who made the main motion can withdraw the motion, and we don't have to vote. So that's solely on Susan if she wants to pull it back and have us discuss on a later date.
So this would be on the agenda for next?
yeah.
Okay, I'll withdraw the motion, and someone has to withdraw the second?
I withdraw the second.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments on Article 16?
So I want to just be clear. We're going to do some, Finance Committee members are okay with 15 tentatively when we place it back on the agenda. I'm just asking, kind of straw poll, is there any questions about 15? 15 was okay, right?
Yeah, I think that just because of the
16.
procedure, we didn't want to.
Audrey, you're going to research, let us, feel free to email through Denny to me, and I'll,
Got it.
questions you may have.
Yeah, just on 16, not 15, but yes. yeah.
Good. And then 17 is, the tailings. Do you want to
So,
explain that?
yeah, so 17 is vote to accept Chapter 200A, Section 9A, disposition of unclaimed property. So the unclaimed property that we currently have is cash checks. It's mostly vendor checks and payroll checks. So this is another effect of municipal modernization, and it just gives me a more streamlined method of doing the tailings process. This basically says, if I follow this process, the town gets to keep the unclaimed money. In the past, the town is supposed to escheat the money to the state. In my experience, there's not too many towns that escheat to the state, they just keep it in a tailings fund. What this is gonna allow us to do is do the due process, another process. We have to advertise, we have to notify the people, advertise that they have an unclaimed check, and then, once we post it for 60 days, under $100, we get to take the money back. Over $100, we have to wait a year. So, and then we don't have to put it into a tailings account. We can take the money back, void the checks, and it's our money to keep. So it's kind of a housekeeping thing, and it just streamlines the tailings process.
So is this Walpole's version of findmassmoney.com?
Every town has it, right, it's just that this, exactly.
Okay. We'll go to Mark Sullivan, and then we'll come to you, Mark.
Yeah, so on this, the same procedure that you put in place applies to everyone. There's no subjectivity that
Oh, yeah, no, applies to everyone. They're on a list.
timeframes,
Yeah.
whatever it
Yep.
is, that's, and all the, and so you What is the latent period that you now
So
avoid?
Under $100 and under is 60 days after we post the list.
Yeah?
And over $100 is a year. So
Okay, thank you.
they get a second notification over $100.
Thank you.
Mark, sorry.
Through you. So a person basically on day 366 would lose all claim to whatever payroll check or tax reimbursement or whatever. Is there a cross-reference for deceased persons when we do our?
Yeah, so
Okay.
there's actually, you know, ultimately, I don't want to say they would not lose it, but, you know, we do have the right to take it back after a year. But if somebody came to us and we had money in the town's account, it would be, we'd have to review review it and make sure, and then a decision would be made. But, you know, we have some checks that are from 2019, people, you know, and we try, the big ones, we try and reach out, we send them a letter. We do everything we can because if they're that large, but
Right.
it does happen.
So our process is we don't have to search the town clerk's office for death notices or anything like that. But if a person comes in on day 75 and said, well, yeah, we didn't know about this because we were burying the person on day 64, you know.
You know, we
they're
do
not gonna get held up.
everything in our power to find the person
Yeah.
and find the appropriate address, you know. Sometimes you just can't, you know.
Okay.
You know, there are people that find the check, you know, somebody does pass away and they're cleaning out the house and they come with the check. You know, we do have that. This is just kind of streamlining our process. We're never gonna like hold them to the letter of the law, you know.
And the record is still there that
Yes.
it was originally issued and then canceled.
Right.
Okay.
Other questions? Doug?
Just curious, was there anything that really triggered this? In the last article, we had the business owner in this?
No, you know what triggered this? It was new for us as treasurer collectors, and we're, you know, go to conferences and everybody's doing this, so that's what triggered it. And it just kind of gives a more defined process.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? If not, is there a motion for Article?
Move favorable
17.
approval. Article
Second?
17.
Great.
Mark,
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
will you second?
Yes, so, yep. So, Susan and then Mark T. Jean has joined us on Zoom. She joined us at 7:37, just to get that in the minutes. So as a result, we've got to do this on roll call. So, Audrey,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Josette, Susan,
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Yes.
Jean.
Yes.
And I will say yes as well. So that makes it 12-0-0. Aye. So,
Denny, if you're okay with it, so on the next agenda, I'll revise it to add Article 2.
all right, will you be comfortable voting on Article 2 next?
I could always.
We held off for you.
Want to hold off on it for a week or two? You tell me.
Capital budget meeting Wednesday to their recommendations. I'm not sure when they're coming in, but,
They're coming in the 11th.
okay.
Yeah, so Article 2 was your request, so, I
You
mean,
want me to push it off till mid-September then?
until you're comfortable.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think, no one has a rush on that, right?
Yeah.
The Board of Health thing would be,
Yeah.
So we'll do that when you're ready. We voted Article 3, Article 4 and 5. You want to hold off until,
Until after capital budget comes in, so we can.
so maybe we put 2, 4, and 5 together from there. We voted on 11 and 12. 15 we can do next meeting, as long as we put it on the agenda. And then Audrey, 16, what do you,
Oh, next meeting, we should be fine.
next, okay.
It's
In
not
the
till
next
7.
meeting's,
Yeah, we have like a week, right?
yeah, right, it's a week from
Week from Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
So we get 10 days.
Because we get, yeah, so,
So on the 7th, I'll add, we have the 3 articles on there. And I'll add 50 and 60. That work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
and then we'll do the other ones, 2, 4, and 5 after capital budgets. That makes sense?
So,
You're going to have them numbered correctly?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
The confusion.
these are now down.
Yeah.
The warrant is here.
so we'll do capital, and then I'll come back at a different night, because I think I'll probably get a sense from maybe Doug or whomever, well, I don't like this item here, I may need another night to figure out what you guys do want to do, so I'll put it probably on the night of the zoning articles or something like that.
Doug, is there, you had told Susan, but I was kind of taking notes that, what specifically, just so we can think ahead of time?
Specifically within culture of recreation, there's $10,000. $10,000 for downtown recreation activities, which, watching the capital budget committee, and Larry, you can correct me, but it's kind of like cornhole boards, is that?
Yeah, that kind of, a chess, like a board, like a I think a concrete type table, correct me, Patrick? That would be like a chess board?
That would be the intention.
Something
So
like that.
my thought is I think we did 10 grand last year, and that still hasn't
Hasn't been used?
hasn't come to fruition. And they're just, I think they said, supply chain issues was what
believe so.
prevented us from
Yeah.
getting the equipment, so.
That's possible.
I would just prefer to see that
Use what they
implemented, to
have.
see how that goes before we move forward with another 10,000.
All right. And then, we'd like to reapply that 10,000 to something else?
Potentially.
Okay.
Is there anything, or if there's any other things, will you let us know, so at least Patrick
Yep.
and I can have answers for you?
That was the first one that jumped out.
Okay.
Jim, is this same thing tied to the 300th anniversary celebration, or is this separate from that?
Separate.
Okay.
Other questions or anything else there? So our next meeting is the 7th, and we still have more to do. And then capital budgets is the 11th, so, all right,
We're good. Good.
all right.
Can I ask Jim or Jody, you guys sent me the annual audit as of June 30, 22 in the management letter. Would it be kind enough, would you guys be kind enough to send it to the,
We already have.
We have, yeah.
great, okay. My email wasn't working very well, so I don't know who got it. and-
No, it went to everyone,
Sorry,
yeah.
and I appreciate that. Sorry that my email is in a funk.
No problem. All right. Jim, you're good for,
Yeah, I'm writing those down, but
All
yeah,
right.
I'm okay.
All right,
The only
thanks.
thing I would say to you, just keep in mind, these articles are in draft form still. Council's reviewing them. And there's one article in particularly, Article 18, which is on your next agenda, DPW contract. We don't have a settled contract with them at this point. We might, but if we don't, that article may be withdrawn from the warrant. So we
Okay.
can throw off the numbers, so just,
yeah.
the board is set to vote and sign the warrant on September 12th. So that's when it'll be final, so it's
Okay.
still in draft form.
But we're procedurally, I just wanted.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, like, if the numbering changes a little bit, there's a reason behind it, so. No
Yeah.
sense bringing a contract up if I don't have one to present to.
No problem. So then,
I have a question.
Oh, yes, ma'am,
Before
sorry.
we go to that. Off topic, do you want to do the minutes first before I ask my question?
I don't mind. You go right ahead.
Okay, October 24th, we have the voting for Tri-County.
Yes.
And I know that the superintendent and the contractor are coming to the COA to give a talk on it. And I'm sure you're aware of this, because Carrie's very good at letting the information flow, as you are to her.
They're also coming to the library, too.
Correct. There's two places, yeah. So what are all the communities doing? Because at one point, prior to the past town meeting, all of the communities involved were meeting. And have they decided what they're going to do as far as taking a stand, either pro or against? And how is this going to be advertised? In my opinion, it's a very important election, and all it is one question, yes or no. But we have to make sure that the residents vote.
So, 2 weeks ago, was it that? 3 weeks ago, we had a meeting here in Walpole I invited all 11 member communities. 9 of them showed up. North Attleboro, who has the biggest attendance and Sherborne, who has the lowest attendance, did not show up. But we kind of all sat around, the town manager sat around the table, talked about, how is this going to impact our town? Town managers can't come out and say for or against. What we agreed to out of that meeting was, we're going to basically develop this sheet, which I've developed, I've sent out for them in a draft form. Did I miss anything? Basically, here's the facts. The election's going to be held on November 24th.
October 24th.
October 24th. I'll share all this with you when it's finalized. Here's the impacts, the expected impacts. We Walpoleized it for us, and then, Franklin's gonna do their own thing, but we all agreed to basically, here's our main bullet points, and then add in whatever you'd like for Walpole or Franklin or North Attleboro. So for us, I said, the expected impact is $1,112,000 a year once the building's fully built. They're going out for a 30-year borrowing, but it's actually gonna be a 35-year borrowing, the way they're setting it up. The max you can go out for a building is 30, but if you borrow 10 here, 70 here, and another 170 over here, you can stretch it out even further. So it is gonna be a 35-year borrowing. And just, how the split for Walpole, if we do 66-34, it's about 700,000 and change for the schools, and, 300 and change on the town side. This will likely, you'll see it in a couple weeks, but that's kind of what came out of it. And the consensus is, it's gonna be a low voter turnout. All of us, most of the member towns had low voter turnout in their annual town election. It wasn't just a Walpole thing this year. And there was a concern that, alumni, and parents from the school likely come out. Everybody else may just forget about it. We're gonna advertise to the max on this one. As far as town resources are concerned, our usual signs in the South Walpole Common here. We'll put some stuff up on Twitter and Facebook, social media, get the word out as much as possible. But it's gonna be a centralized voting. It's gonna be held down at the end of the hall here too.
So all the votings for every precinct is here?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Through you, Jim. What happens if it's voted down?
I don't know what they're gonna do. My guess, maybe they'd come back with a lesser version of it, or try to petition the state. To their credit, they did ask the state to consider a change to the Mass General Law that would increase the funding for vocational high schools. It never went anywhere. I don't even think it was taken up, so, I don't know what they're gonna do if it's voted down.
Unfortunately, Tri-County is not the only school like this, special school, that is in the time element to be
They were all
have
built at the same
revision.
time, right?
They're basically all
Same
built
time.
around the same
Same time.
time. So you would think that the state would be, oxymoron, smart, to address that accordingly and increase the money for these, because you're not talking of a standard high school. Everything in there is so much more expensive because of what they
happens
do.
if 3 towns vote yes and the others vote no? I mean, it's like,
Doesn't matter.
Straight popular vote.
Just,
It's gotta
if
be-
5,000 people show up to the election, it's 2,500 plus one, majority wins.
no, but I mean, each town is gonna have,
No,
Oh, it's
it's
one
not by the
election.
town, it's one election for
It's
the,
one election,
And it
it's
doesn't
a
include the
county.
funding source.
Okay.
So it's up to the towns to figure
I
out
got
the
it.
funding on their own.
okay.
yeah.
Is anybody, I'm kind of sorry the superintendent has left. I just think the whole vocational and high school, it's a dead model now. Just look at AI coming in, the number of jobs it's gonna replace. Here we are looking to renovate Walpole High School because the new vocational school is gonna be able to offer services that we don't offer at the high school. I'm just thinking this vocational thing is really going to take off, and we're gonna have so many students applying that they're not gonna wanna go to Walpole High School. In other words, if you have, I don't have high school
Well, the good news,
students.
Mark, is they're capped at 1,000 students at this new school.
Right, but
They
just
currently have-
imagine, for kids that are going into high school, to go to them and say, you can go to Walpole High School, we've renovated, it's a fine high school, terrific, or you can go to a brand-new high school. You can get college preparatory classes, past your MCAS, and you can learn skills to become a plumber, an electrician. I mean, what parent wouldn't be saying, son, daughter, I want you to go to the vocational high school. So I'm really wondering, when you look at this thing, are we robbing Peter, which is basically gonna be Walpole High School, and they're gonna wanna go to Paul, which is, so in other words, kids are gonna stop going to Walpole High School because they're gonna go to a brand-new vocational high school and get skills that are gonna be lifetime skills, especially, and I know I'm kind of preaching and I'm going off on this thing. Well, I'll reserve my comments to the meetings and stuff, but I just think that the whole state vocational high school and a regular high school is just a model that doesn't work anymore. They should be having a vocational job training center that trains you from 18 years old till you're into your 60s or 70s learning things. And kids go to a high school and go there for specific training, and it doesn't become its own high school. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm done.
I should become an electrician.
But I think it just, again,
Oh, wait a minute, you said you were done.
I'm done, I'm done.
All right, let's move on to minutes. So we have minutes from most of our spring meetings. I sent them out a while ago. I don't know what, so the polling question was sending them out the way I did with the Word document, where you guys can come in, read, and everyone can edit there. Was that helpful, not helpful? I can do it in the future.
I think in theory, it's helpful, if I may. With the time element, I mean, I sort of put it off, and then today was like, oh my God.
Well,
You know,
I will do a much better job at getting them to you in a quicker
And
manner.
I'm not criticizing you, I'm just saying, I think in theory, it should work.
Okay.
It's there, it's accessible whenever you want it, we're not wasting paper, tossing things around. I like it,
All right.
but the amount of comments you'll see posted from me would not reflect that opinion.
You did a bunch, because when I s- oh,
No, I
okay.
didn't do a bunch, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, no, Gene, I don't know who does them, I just see guest user. So Gene had made a few, but there weren't that many. So this printout should reflect the red lines, which, as we can see, didn't have a ton of red. Which I think is just credit to the gentleman that watched the videos and took the notes and did all the hard work, so.
He is now the assistant town clerk in another town, so.
Still gonna give him credit.
So he's doing good.
Do we have anyone for this, to do this now?
Yeah, we're working on it.
Is it strictly based on the experience he had with us?
Right.
But no, so we worked, so Liz lost the assistant town clerk and Kevin, who did a lot of this stuff, but we kind of shared him. So, he came here to learn something about being a town clerk, and now he's the assistant town clerk in another town.
There we
He
go.
was really good at the senior center in Houston for several months when one of our staff was out injured. And he's very personable, and a lot of people were actually sending him thank you cards, because he was so, well, he was really cute. And a lot of
Don't put that in
seniors.
the minutes.
and a lot of- No, but a lot of the seniors thought he was really cute, and he was very helpful.
That's right. So, February 20, meeting for minutes for February 27th. There does not appear to be any edits to them that came through. Did anyone have any?
I mean, it's minor, there's just a comma between Jody's first and last name, but
Where's this?
on the first page, huh? Jody.
Oh,
It's like share.
I can edit that when I get home.
Yeah.
If there's no other
I think that whatever page 2, fourth paragraph should be conform rather than confirm.
All right, let me conform.
Yep.
Anything else? If not, so do we have to approve each one individually, or can we go through them all and approve them all at the end in one vote, since we got to do the roll call?
I go with the easiest option here.
All right.
Go ahead.
Because they came all stapled in one package, so we'll go that route. March 2nd, 2023, we have some, a couple of small red lines in here. I didn't see anything else. Did anyone have anything else from these dates?
Hearing none, I'm going to move on to March 27th. Again, we have a couple of small red lines that were done. If there's anything else from anyone? Aye. And then we'll move on to April 6th. Did I have that right? April 6th, 2023. There are some red lines in here. Just see one. If there's nothing that anyone sees.
I just saw someone redline from for the approval based off, another small thing, but not on the February minutes or the first March minutes. I don't know if you care
Based
to be
from,
consistent.
based.
Based off of printed,
Yeah,
well,
it
first,
doesn't really
I think
matter to
the
me.
first one, I think in the subsequent ones, it was omitted completely.
Okay,
Yeah. Aye.
that's helpful.
And then, sorry, I had lost my page now.
I think we're April.
April 6th, we're good there. And then April 27th. There were some changes here. Actually, there were none on April 27th, unless anyone has anything. And then we finally have May 3rd, and we have the one red line there.
I guess on May
Yep.
3rd, it's like a page long and it was a 2-hour meeting. I guess that's my only question. Looks like we started at 7 o'clock and we adjourned at 8:55.
Oh, no, that's minutes on the video.
At the
Okay,
8-minute and
okay,
55, yeah.
Okay.
So is it a 9-minute?
I was like, no, because that was the,
It was a 9-minute meeting.
yeah, that was a really quick
It's the
meeting, yeah.
sentence right below that.
Yeah.
I didn't get that far.
Yep, okay, yeah.
Aye. So, we're good with, if no one has anything to add, I'm going to ask for a motion for favorable action to approve the minutes for February 27th, March 2nd, March 27th, April 6th, April
27,
27th, and
May 3rd.
May 3rd.
Move to accept the minutes as noted.
We got it from Mark, and a second from Doug. So I'm going to go through Audrey,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
Josette.
Yes, but I was absent for 2 of them, so it doesn't make that much difference. So,
You can
yes, in
approve, yes.
general.
Abstain.
Abstain. Larry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
And I will say yes. So that gives us,
701.
yep, thank you. Thank you for doing the math quickly. Is there any other business? I think we covered it earlier.
I just have one comment.
If it's about the Tri-County vocational
I'm done, I'm gonna save my thoughts for that meeting to get up there. No, I was just going to, mention that every time I see after the Federal Reserve meetings and all the interest rates hikes they've had, so it's just a kudos to Jim and the team that put together. I still remember sitting in the Byrd Auditorium, hearing the pitch, we should borrow more money now at a cheaper rate than wait and wait and wait, and
Let's try county in the future.
great job, great job.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
The other thing I would say before we leave is that, along the same lines of positive action, so many years ago when I moved to this town, I was telling somebody recently, everything was a Band-Aid. Oh my God, there's a leak in the police department, oh, the high school's gonna be condemned, and it was always like the house is on
Yeah,
fire.
yeah.
And over the course of 28 years, the transformation is remarkable. Like, I feel like we're really ahead of the curve, we're planning, we're proactive. I'm really proud of the progress that we've all made, and
I will second that opinion for someone that actually grew up here and watched nothing get done in the 70s, 80s, and most of the 90s. Been a better century than the last one.
good work.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second, so we gotta do it again.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Jean?
Yes.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you.